welcome to episode 7 of Hello Friends, the Mr. Robot in Review Show. My name is Kyle. I'm going to be your host today. Thank you all for checking out the channel. I hope that you've taken a look at the trailer I just put up there. Spent a lot of time on that. Super proud of that. I know it's only about a 3-minute video, but as you know, we are going to be transitioning from Hello Friends. I just wanted to be clear, I'm still going to be making the Mr. Robot in Review Show. We're still going to have another 40 after this, another 39 episodes to go. That's still going to be my baby, my pride and joy. But I do want to do more review shows. I do want to do other things other than just Mr. Robot. So starting next week, at the time of this recording, there's going to be John Wick in review. We're going to be doing some other reviews. I don't want to spoil anything. Please go check out the trailer for what's next. But that starts next week. So we're going to have some more content. So thank you for joining me. Thank you for all the love and support that I've gotten so far. I've had a blast doing it, and I'm looking forward to doing a whole bunch of other reviews for some of my favorite things and some of my favorite franchises. So without further ado, there is further ado actually. One other thing I wanted to mention here, changing the format up of the show a little bit. If you've noticed the last couple weeks, tell me you're seeing this too. I've taken out that segment. I've kind of revamped it a little bit. So I'm now going to be putting the scenes, my favorite shots within the episode as we go. I think this kind of gives a better picture, and it just makes, I think, for a better product and a cleaner product. So you'll be seeing that. So that segment is not really necessarily gone. I'm just putting those scenes in any big shots. The Mr. Robot title card is always going to be in the front or throughout here, and then just my favorite shots or big shots throughout. So welcome to episode 7, Mr. Robot season 1, episode 7. I want to call this one Blip, and we will find out why, but we are going to go right ahead. So the plot is an illusion. Season 1, episode 7, Mr. Robot. Things are starting to ramp up. Things are starting to get good. We've kind of been building tension. We now know the main characters, the F Society group. Elliot, of course, Mr. Robot. We've got Tyrell Wellick, Scott Knowles, Sharon Knowles. We've got Joanna Wellick. We've got a whole bunch of cast of characters here. Now things are starting to kind of build collectively as Sam Esmail has laid down here now, episode 7. There's only 10 episodes in the first season, so we are sort of starting to ramp up the tension and build towards a good climax here, or a good finish to season 1. So, season 1, episode 7. So the show opens with a hooded Elliot returning to his apartment. Everything is kind of quiet. This is right after the events of Shayla dying in the trunk of if you remember episode, spoilers, if you've seen episode 6, was that crazy ending where they break Vera out of prison, and his brother Isaac gets shot by DJ, their henchman. Vera leaves. Shayla is found in the trunk by Elliot. Crazy, he runs away. So we're picking that up right after that. And Elliot's heading back to his apartment, and it's very quiet. And he is going to his apartment, and the door for Shayla's apartment, 4D, is kind of cracked open slightly, and he sees a woman inside kind of unpacking some boxes. You're wondering who is that woman? And Elliot sits down to do some drugs, and doesn't look like the morphine that he's usually doing. But there's a banging on the door. She says, "Hey, I'm bleeding in the hallway here. I saw you go in there. I know you're home." We're kind of wondering, who is this? And lo and behold, it's a younger Shayla. She's got bangs. She looks a lot younger. Elliot's a little bit different. He's quiet. He's not really saying much there. So we can tell this is kind of a flashback or in the past here. So Shayla comes into Elliot's apartment, and she starts kind of shooting the shit. She's just talking. Elliot's sitting there. He's kind of bug-eyed, wondering what's going on, kind of like us, where like, obviously this is a flashback, but the last episode left us with Shayla's death, so you're wondering, okay, this must be a flashback, what's going on here? But it's a cool glimpse into kind of what we'll find out is the first time that Shayla and Elliot met, and so it's a nice little stroll down memory lane there. So Shayla dips into the drugs that Elliot's got on the counter there, not the counter, but just like on kind of on the end table, or the coffee table, and she says, let me know if you want some top shelf hookup. And then she goes, "All right, well, Mr. Muscles, I need you, now I've got your attention, I need some help moving a dresser." And so she's kind of flirting with Elliot. You can see here they have a really playful sort of attitude going on, or at least she does, or she's obviously into Elliot at this point. So we cut outside to Elliot and Shayla, who are just kind of chilling outside. Shayla's talking about how she loves concerts, and she's saying this local band that's around here is getting too big. And Elliot says, I hate concerts, too many people. She goes, you don't really like people, do you? And Elliot goes, not most of them, no. And Shayla goes, so by that rationale, if you were to like someone, it would be, let's say, an anomaly. And he's like, yeah, I guess so. And she's like, challenge accepted. I aim for special. This is a really cute moment. Shayla's like really hitting on Elliot here, really giving him some signals that she's into him. And I said she's macking on Elliot hard here. And then I was thinking, is this an alternate Shayla? What's going on here? Because when we last saw Shayla, or we first saw her, when she's dealing with Vera in episode 2 or episode 3, she's like, you barely know me. She's kind of cold. She doesn't, she's not really into Elliot. This Shayla that we see here is super into Elliot. And then that's when we find out, Shayla goes, oh, I'm sorry, I gotta go meet the girls for drinks. And she's walking away and she goes, oh, I'm Shayla. And so this is obviously now confirmed the first time that they meet. And she goes, I do have a guy who would sell you some Suboxone with some morphine, because Elliot earlier asked if he can get morphine, or he's like, I'd buy morphine from you, but it's got to be with Suboxone too. And she says, I don't really know. There's one guy, but he's supposed to be a fucking psychopath. And she's like, you know what? Maybe it'll be worth it. And Shayla's into him, so she's like, let me see what I can do for you. And she walks away. And we get this, oh, I'm sorry. And she brings a fish over to Elliot's apartment. And when she originally needed help, she poured just a glass and put the fish in there. And I think that's the same fish we saw a couple episodes ago, where Elliot's like, what can I do to help? And that's when the fish was like, put me by a goddamn window. So same fish from there, I think, as this fish that Shayla got him. Cute little moment there. But she says, keep the fish, you filthy animal, which is a really cute line. And she walks away, and we get this amazing song, The Cure's Pictures of You, and it's a really, really cute moment. Kind of got Bumblebee vibes here with Haley Steinfeld, if anyone's seen Bumblebee. Good movie, but really cute. And we get the Mr. Robot title card. Really, really good stuff here. And then when this scene was happening, I'm thinking to myself, is this the happiest we've ever had Mr. Robot, or the show Mr. Robot has ever been? Because it's usually very like dark and deals with stuff. This is like almost an out of character moment or out of scene moment where we get a really happy scene, a really good vibe. The Cure is always great, so this was a cool moment here. Almost beautifully tragic though, because obviously we know Shayla dies at the hands of Vera, and if you remember last episode, Mr. Robot said Shayla was dead the minute she started working with that maniac. Apparently that minute is this minute, because she, says she's gonna hit up Vera. The rest is history. So we cut to Black, and Elliot is talking to us, the audience, for the first time in this episode. He says, sorry I haven't talked to you in a while. I mean, it's only been a month, which I guess in the grand scheme of things isn't that long. And he goes, isn't our life like a blip in the cosmic calendars? So that's Shayla, a blip. Not even. Here's one blip, here one blip, gone the next. He says, makes me hate myself. I've already gotten used to the idea of her not being here. In a year, I'll maybe think about her every once in a while. Then she'll become an anecdote, a thing to say. I knew a girl that died. That's the added, with the added bonus of she died because of me. Maybe I should hate myself. And these are hard words from Elliot to us. Kind of goes along with the pain that we've seen Elliot talking to us. He's a very broken individual. His soul is kind of shattered, and you can see he's struggling through a lot of pain and hurt. And obviously losing Shayla doesn't help here, so he's kind of blaming himself for that. And there's a slow pan out from the wall outlet here to Elliot's face, who's kind of looking away. And we're in Krista's office, his therapist. And he says to us, she's getting rid of me, in case you're still trying to figure that out. And he goes over 52 hours of Krista's voice inside this room. And he says, she wants more from me, but she doesn't believe in me. Krista says, I believe some part of you, inside of you, wants to do this right. And Elliot says to us, are you on her side? And he's signing a form where Krista says he's going to be released, or she's getting rid of him. I think she's just basically giving up on him. But she's like, we got a lot more work to do here, but I don't know if she says, I think it's best that you go to someone else or what's going on here, but I think they decide to kind of part ways. But it's a very kind of awkward scene, or it's like she's just going through the motions where she's like, just sign this and, I'll be rid of you. And Elliot just kind of signs it, and then he walks away. Or excuse me, he's going to leave, and he just says, clean your sockets. And it's just a really good bit there, because the socket's just really dirty, probably a safety hazard, and he walks out. So we cut to a boardroom with Angela and the lawyer from last episode that she hired for the case with Terry Colby, and they are meeting with Terry Colby's lawyer team, which is three really expensive lawyers. And they're saying, we can offer you hope and blah, blah, blah. They basically say, we're going to consider the offer. So then we cut to Allsafe, where Elliot is entering Gideon's office, and everything here is really clean and white and looks almost futuristic and really, really cool. This is going to be a shot here. I really just like the aesthetic of this shot here with Gideon in the office. Everything Allsafe is always kind of futuristic and techy, and it's a really nice shot. So Gideon is offering Elliot some time off, and when he's offering that, he's kind of suggesting some time off. He says, I know you've been blowing through everything here, but with everything that's happened, he's like, I think you should take some time off. Obviously, they know about Shayla's death at this point. I don't know how much time. I think Elliot said it's been a month since he's talked to us. So does that mean it's been a month since Shayla died? Does that mean, what happened? It sounds like it's been at least a little bit of time. People now know that Shayla did die. And obviously, they had a dinner party. Shayla was Elliot's girlfriend, so Gideon is like, hey man, just, take some time. And Elliot kind of immediately shoots us down. He says, no, I'm good. I don't want time off. And he's about to walk out like he always does out of situations. And Gideon stops him. He says, wait. He goes, I'm sorry she was taken from you, but don't let her death close you off entirely. Find someone you can be your honest self with. And Elliot says to us, it was so easy to hack websites when I was little. You just hit view source and you can modify the code, and then that website is yours. And he said, what if we had view source for people? And then there's a really great bit of all the coworkers in Allsafe walking around with signs on the front, and it says like, I'm bulimic, I'm scared of sex, like all these things. Basically the view source, which is a really good joke here, it's all of people's insecurities, or if people had a sign on the front of them, would people really want to see view source, or would people really want to see the inside contents of other people? And so that was a really, really clever bit there. And then Elliot says to us, be your honest self. What bullshit advice. And then he turns to Gideon, he says, really good advice, thanks. Which I thought was a funny bit. And then we get a cut to a dark bar of Mr. Robot reading off an article from the paper that talks about basically have society not having the manpower for an attack. And he walks over to Darlene at the bar, and he's like, we need Dark Army back. And she's like, dude, I've been trying. She's like, do you know how hard it is to hack a hacker? And she's talking about Cisco. And Mr. Robot just says, we need one meeting. And he says, if we can talk to White Rose directly. And Darlene goes, dude, we don't even know if White Rose exists. If the guy even exists, he's not going to meet face to face. She goes, it could be anybody. There's like some dude passed out. She goes, excuse me, dude, are you White Rose? Just a good Darlene humor, classic Darlene humor. She's just kind of all the way out there. And then we get a sad cut to Elliot, who is copying Shayla's final files onto his CD to add to his digital cemetery, which is a heartfelt moment. And he says, this is all I have left of her. I'll miss her. And this is really sad. This is the first kind of time we've seen Elliot show some emotion or show some empathy for someone else. And then he just goes, I need to wipe again. And he throws his chips back in his microchips or his computer parts into the microwave, and he starts to do those. Not sure why he needs to wipe again, but he feels he needs to. So then we get an amazing shot to Tyrell Wellick in the lobby of an E-Corp building, and he's kind of off, looking dejected. There's 3 poor souls behind him. Some coworkers talking about, stocks or E-Corp's value. Some dude says he was going to leave for Google. if they didn't change around their expense reports, and he says, he like got a blowjob from some executive in the Google lounge or something. And they're, three guys who are just kind of shooting the shit, and typical like jock douchey like Wall Street guys that are talking about hooking up, and they say all executives are just, sleeping with someone to move up the ladder, and they say some executives are even going gay or pretending to be gay so they can move up the ladder. And then Tyrell sort of slowly turns his head there, because obviously that was what Tyrell was trying to do. And he goes, "Hey Dwight, I meant to ask you, how are the kids?" And Dwight's one of the guys sitting over there. And he goes, "Oh, hell if I know, I sent them off to Lawrence." And Tyrell goes, "Lawrence?" He goes, "You'll never be able to afford that with unemployment." And the guy goes, Dwight goes, "I'm sorry?" And then Tyrell screams, "You're fired!" He screams it. And psycho move. Awesome scene here by Martin Wallstrom as Tyrell Wellick. And it's quiet, and everyone's kind of looking around, wondering, like, is this a joke? What's going on here? And the guy just kind of tries to laugh it off. And Tyrell kind of calms down, and he says, "The two of you as well." And he goes, "I'm going to make sure you receive the minimum severance package." And one of the other guys says, "I don't understand, Mr. Wellick. What did we do?" And Tyrell goes, "Nothing." And just a baller scene from Tyrell, just putting his authority down and just being like, "You know what, you three are." He didn't like the way they were talking, and so he's just like, "You know what, you three are done. Like, you three are fired." So it shows that even though Tyrell's kind of notched down a peg and he's pissed off he didn't get CTO, he's still got some power, and he just fires his three jockeys there, basically. I don't know if they were working for Tyrell, but they're just out just like that. So we cut back to Angela and her lawyer, who's fresh off of a meeting with the state attorney, and she says, "Colby's lawyers have agreed to meet with you, but only Angela can go there. You're going to go to Terry Colby's house." And she goes, "You're going to question this man in power. Are you sure this is something you want to do?" And then we cut to Romero's, looks like a greenhouse, or maybe his basement, almost like an outdoor facility where he's now like selling weed or growing weed. And Mr. Robot, great shot here. Mr. Robot smoking a cigar. Who's broken into Romero. Romero kind of approaches him with a gun. He's like, "Man, you scared the shit out of me. I thought you were like some kid breaking into my house." Mr. Robot says, "You gave up on the revolution. You and I both know that I'm crazy, but not the cute kind of crazy." And he smashes some shit for Romero's shit. And he says, "Just come back to the arcade and we can change the world together." And he says, "No, man, I got a brain, but I don't want to. What was our plan anyway? It wasn't even going to work." And that's when Mr. Robot pulls a gun on him. And he kind of backs Romero up to the edge there. And he says, "Romero, just come back to the arcade. We can change the world together." And then he goes, bang! And he kind of, the gun was never loaded, but it's a nice scene where the tension builds up, and he throws the gun, and Mr. Robot starts laughing, and Romero's like, "Dude, you're a psychopath." He's like, "You're crazy." And Mr. Robot says, "You gave me your word when we started this thing that you'd finish it. And I gave you my word on what I would do if you didn't." And he goes, "I'll see you back at the arcade." Which means you need to finish this, and if not, I told you I was going to kill you, or I'm going to kill you if you don't. And so it's a threat, but it works. So we cut back to Terry Colby's house with a painting, like a terrible painting of himself. Terry goes over, sits down with Angela. He goes, "Okay, let's get started. How much do you want?" And he goes, "Money will always be better than what you're looking for." Angela just starts asking questions. She says, "Where were you when this leak happened? What meeting? What happened? Blah, blah, blah." He goes, "I don't know what you're talking about." And he goes, "Oh, you're the girl from Allsafe, that hot young thing that came in here before to my house a month ago." And then he gets up and he says, "You know what? I'll tell you what, Angela, I'm going to answer your questions, but first I need you." And then he goes into like great detail. He talks about how basically she needs to suck his balls. And he goes into like, "My hairy balls, and you got to put in one cheek. I think he says your pouty mouth or something." It's really gross. Really, really good acting by Bruce Altman here. But just digging into the character, and it just really goes to show you that Terry Colby is just a piece of shit. And even though this guy was implicated or framed, now you don't really feel bad for him because this is the second time he's being really rude to Angela. And this is just obviously sexual harassment and really, really terrible. Good scene, but poor Angela is just like about to cry. She's like, I don't even want to deal with this guy, and she's maybe in over her head. And so he proves he's a piece of trash person, Terry Colby. Again, good acting by Bruce Altman, not his fault there. And Angela says, you know, if you don't take this deal, you're going to lose the respect of everyone. She goes, you're going to be just like me. People you know, people who don't know, everyone is going to hate you. And she goes, it's a shitty feeling, trust me. And that kind of sits with Terry, but then she walks out. And we cut to Elliot at the vet where Flipper has eaten trash. And so she's like, hey, has your dog ever eaten trash before? And he goes, no. And then he goes, not that I know of. And then it's like, oh, well, he obviously hasn't had this dog forever, so maybe Flipper was doing this with his old owner, Michael. So Angela's walking away. She gets a call from her lawyer. She's like, you know what, you're right, I shouldn't have done this. And she goes, Terry's lawyers want to talk. Go back there. So she heads back to the house. But before that, we get Darlene, who tracks down Cisco, who's playing chess at the park. And Cisco reveals that, you know, you've hacked me, like you screwed me over as a foot soldier. You broke into a chat room using my handle, and you set up a meeting. And he's like, I don't ever want to see you again, because now we're probably both gonna be killed. And he's like, you know what, but you got your wish, the meeting is on. And so that's revealed. Yes, they're gonna meet with White Rose. This is a big development here, but what it means for their safety, I don't know. He's like, I would tell you to be safe, but I know you're not going to be. So then we cut back to Angela, returning to Terry Colby's house, and now what is a super awkward return, because he was just an asshole to her, and then she turned around like 5 minutes later. And Colby says, what do you want? He's like, what are you looking out of this? And she says, I want to know what it was like when you decided to ignore the leak. And he says, so what, you want me to tell you that I sat here and then we had cigars while we signed the evil papers? And he's like, that's not how the world works. And she says, well, how does the world work? Like, I want to know. And so Terry Colby tells the story, and Bruce Altman does a really good job here. He's actually a much more likable character here, and he's in a much better mood the second time. He's kind of realized that he was really rude to Angela, and he messed up, and she was right, and he needs to take this deal. But he tells a story about how he got drunk with some his coworkers, and they were having shrimp cocktails, and he said it was raining, and they signed the papers. And so Angela says, okay, so you were drunk, and you and your buddies got drunk, it was raining, and you were having shrimp cocktails when you decided to let my mother die. And then that's when Terry Colby's like, oh, that's not what I meant, but yeah, it does look kind of bad. So Angela says, that's why I'm doing this. She says, so people like you won't keep sitting in rooms together. And now Terry Colby's kind of feeling bad. He's looking down, and he actually kind of looks hurt. It's really good acting by Bruce Altman here. And he says, you know, she's like, was there ever pause? You know, did you ever think about not doing it? And he goes, of course there's pause. But he goes, you know, then you go home and you eat dinner, and the next day happens. And Terry Colby's actually kind of ashamed here, and he turns around and he faces the street. So then we cut to the E-Corp party where Scott Knowles is officially being named CTO by Philip Price, who we haven't seen since the early episodes. And Joanna is there with Tyrell Wellick, and she says, steady. And that's all she says to Tyrell. And there's, like we said, they got to take it back, and this is kind of their big opportunity to make some leeway, and this is their plan. So Tyrell walks over to the bar, and he very obviously runs into Sharon Knowles, who's split off from her husband, Scott, and just in the party. And so they both get a drink together, and they kind of shoot the shit. They have like a playful conversation over by the window. And he's like, well, you know, I didn't think you were going to tell on me. And she's like, oh, come on, that's nothing. Like, it's been a month or whatever. And he's like, all right, well, come to my office then. And she's like, I can't believe you're asking me that. And he's like, well, how about the back stairwell? He's like, the cameras have been out since March. And he just kind of leaves her with that, and she walks away, and she doesn't say no, and you can tell she's thinking about it. And as we discussed, or as we found out last time, even though Tyrell failed, what we found out, or what Joanna reminded us, the audience, is that Sharon Knowles wants to be wanted. That's her goal. So they're kind of trying to exploit that now. So we cut back to All Safe, where Angela is talking to Gideon about testifying against Terry Colby or against E Corp, and Gideon says, I know this seems like the right move to you, but if you do this, All Safe is done. He says all of the families here, everything I've worked to protect is destroyed. And Angela's like, oh, maybe I shouldn't do that. And Gideon's like, you can't do this, basically. So that's just a little bit to chew on there. So we go back to the E Corp roof now, and Tyrell is on the roof now, or the back stairwell. It looks like a roof area. And Sharon has come up there, and she's like, your plan is weak. My husband is downstairs being named CTO, and you're up here. She's like, you're up here trying to fuck me. And she's like, you're clinging to threads, or you're hanging on. You're basically clinging. She goes, Scott plans to fire you, and it doesn't seem like you have anything. And then Tyrell just goes in and leans, or just grabs her and just starts making out with her. And she doesn't really resist. You can tell that's kind of what she was hinting at. She was playing hard to get. And so they go eventually to the ground. They're making out. Good scene. And a fire track starts playing, which is 2 Weeks by FKA Twigs. I used Shazam to get that song. Amazing song. Really, like, one of my favorite scenes. And I remember this scene, obviously. But this is such a great scene in Mr. Robot because the song is perfect, and it's like that hot, like, nightlife kind of vibe, but you can tell they're kind of like hooking up, and they're probably both enjoying it, and it's kind of wild. And then things take a turn. So then Tyrell starts to choke out Sharon, and she's like, what are you doing? Stop. And then he chokes her, and he keeps choking her, and now he's like trying to kill her. And the music keeps playing, and the music gets louder, and the song is just so perfect, and it's really like kind of fucked up to watch, and it's a really, really great scene. Both actors are really good in it, but it's hard to watch because Sharon is struggling, and there's like a cut to her feet, and she's like kicking off her heels, and she's just doing whatever she can to try and escape as Tyrell is trying to kill her, and he just keeps squeezing. And again, this is kind of the madness that is Tyrell Wellick, and we saw it when he was beating up the homeless guy. We saw it when he was breaking all the shit in his own house. All Joanna was that he's got an anger issue, and I mean, Sharon was right. He doesn't really have anything, and he's about to be fired, as we found out. And so what he's doing is eliminating her quite literally by killing her or choking her out. And whether Tyrell went up to the roof intending to kill Sharon, I'm not sure. I don't think so. I think he was trying to hopefully seduce her and then have her say something to Scott or have him reposition or something. But yeah, there's an amazing scene, and there's an amazing aerial shot where the music is going, and then as soon as she's dead, it just goes quiet. And Tyrell just starts immediately breaking down. Martin Wallstrom, really, really good job acting here. He starts crying, and it's just fucked up. And it's really, really, it's realistic because everything was going crazy, and then all of a sudden Tyrell was like, I just killed a person, and now he's wondering what he's gonna do. He's crying, he's like holding his hand over his face, and then he has got like a wipe or something where he actually wipes his fingerprints clean before he walks away, but then he's like kind of crying and messed up, and he walks away. So I don't think he intended to kill her. Things escalated. Okay, so then we get Darlene meeting Trenton in the park, trying to bring her back. They're all trying to get like the F Society members together. We haven't seen Mobley yet. We don't see Mobley in this episode, but you can tell they're trying to get the group back together and say, let's try this thing again. They're trying to get Dark Army back. F Society's trying to ramp it back up. Then we get Ollie running into Cisco in the street, and Cisco's like, man, you gotta follow what I'm gonna do, or there's gonna be a giant shitstorm that's raining from the sky. And so these little threads are being planted here. And then we get a hooded Elliot outside of Krista's office, and she's like, Elliot, I wasn't expecting you. And he's like, I'm here for my appointment. But he's not, because he just showed up unexpectedly. But she's like, okay, I can slip you in before my first patient. And Elliot's there like early morning, and they go in there. And then end of the episode here, Elliot says, you told me I should tell the truth. Everything I say will still be protected and confidential. And she's like, yeah, of course. And he goes, okay, I've been lying to you. I haven't been taking my pills. But then he goes, but you haven't either. And then Elliot reveals to us and out loud to Krista, he says, I know you aren't good with money. He reveals that she bought like a latte earlier today, but it's, I think, like with her sister's card, or she got double the points on her sister's card or something. And then he goes, you're encouraging your 2 o'clock patient to leave her husband because you're tired of being dumped. And he names the name. So this is obviously, he's revealing that he's hacked her because he's giving very specific details. He says, you like porn, especially anal. Whether you like it or not, that's not relevant to me. But she's like, oh, like this dude did hack me. And so that's just proof there. He says, sometimes I watch you on your webcam, and I was like, oh, this is getting weird, Elliot. And this is where like Hooded Elliot or Hacker Elliot is really the villain here. And it's, yes, he has hacked to help people, but this is where you can really, you root for Elliot most of the time, and Rami Malek does such an amazing job as Elliot Alderson that it's hard to root against him. But this is one of the times where you're like, oh man, he's just a broken soul, and it's like, Hacker Elliot is not a good dude. So he goes, I don't just hack you, Krista, I hack everyone. He goes, but I've helped a lot of people. And he goes, I just want a way out of loneliness, just like you. And he goes, is that what you wanted to hear? And at this point, Elliot is like about to break down in tears, and it's a really emotional scene. And we get end credits. So yeah, that was it's a heavy end to the episode. But that's episode 7. Okay, so for a score for this one, I'm giving it a 9.5. This, outside of the pilot, is maybe my favorite episode. I'm sorry, is definitely my favorite episode of Mr. Robot of season 1. The pilot is really, I think, perfect, so it's hard. That's why I gave it a 10 out of 10. And I may have set the bar kind of high there, but yeah, 9.5 I'm going with here. I just think it was really, really strong episode from start to finish. There weren't any really weak plots, I thought, like kind of last episode where I thought we had some really nice moments, and the whole prison breakout with Vera was amazing, but I thought the Angela stuff, although it kind of continues here and it's better here, I thought it was kind of weak. But this episode, I think, scene to scene, I was just completely enthralled, and I thought every scene was great. So yeah, between the Tyrell stuff, obviously what happens with Sharon at the end, getting F Society back together, it's all just Mr. Robot. This is the first time we kind of see Mr. Robot be like a psychopath, and you know, Elliot did say Mr. Robot's crazy, but he's been pretty calm for the most part. He did mention he wanted to blow up Steel Mountain initially, so I mean, obviously he's not completely sane, but this is the first time we kind of see him unhinged. So a lot of really good things here. Just, yeah, 9.5. I think it was a really, really strong episode. Probably the strongest one for season 1 so far. The White Rose Award, I got to give to Tyrell Wellick, Martin Wallstrom. This was an interesting episode because I think there wasn't really... I think Tyrell stood out the most. A lot of there's an ensemble cast really in this one. You get Tyrell, you get Elliot, you get Mr. Robot, Darlene's in there, you get Cisco, even Ollie makes an appearance, Angela, Terry Colby. There's a really big cast in this episode, but I thought Tyrell Wellick, I thought Martin Wallstrom's scene stood out the most. The scene in the office was great where he just fires those guys, and you can tell he's kind of just ramping up to just do something crazy, which he ends up doing. And in the scene with Sharon at the end where he kills Sharon is crazy. So, and that's one of my most memorable scenes where I remembered that scene from when I originally watched it about 5 years ago. And so I knew that scene was coming. And yeah, Tyrell Wellick, I'm going to give him the White Rose here. Well, that's 7 episodes down, guys. So we are now under the 40 mark. We got 39 more to go. These episodes are just getting better and better as the seasons go on. So thank you for joining me. Please like, comment, subscribe. I've been loving the views. Again, I think we're at 112 views right now at the time of this recording for episode 1. And I know that's not a lot, but to me that's super special, and I've loved all the support you guys have given me. So thank you. All the kind words have been amazing. So yeah, again, this is episode 7, Mr. Robot of Hello Friends. This episode, Blip, and we are going to be doing, or I'm going to be doing, some more reviews, so watch out for those. Please go check out my trailer. There's going to be more stuff coming down the pipeline, but my baby, the Mr. Robot show, that's going to be kind of my bread and butter there. So until next time, goodbye, friends.